Okay, so what I'm going to talk about here are the track gauges that I produced for people. And what we have are some of the rejects that I haven't sent off. Basically, these are really simple. These ones here are brass, but most of them that I made were out of aluminum. The metal doesn't really matter. Both will suck away plenty of heat. But you have a set of two gauges. And you'll note that the gauges are slightly different. One has stops on either side, equally spaced, and a center guide, so that if you know where your track centers are, this can help you place the first rail. And the other one is missing the stop on one side, and this is so that you can operate this gauge right at the frog, so you can space your guardrails and wing rails as you're building a switch, if you still hand build them from scratch. Otherwise, the gauges on the other side are identical to this side. They should be interchangeable. Also included was about a 3-inch piece of 256 all thread, and that's because the gauges are drilled and tapped so that if you wanted, you could put the all thread between them and space, use a gauge to space the centers, and you could place parallel tracks. Once you have one track placed, you can use this to space the other one very easily. The gauges themselves work very accurately. If you're unhappy, let me know. We can try and work something out, whether it be a refund or maybe I can build you some new ones or figure out what the problem is. But always, always, always default to what the NMRA gauge or whatever gauge you're using is. I do know some gauges are different, specifically when you get into the proto scales, because the NMRA typically is not the one that's manufacturing them. I noticed in the P48 there's a wider gap for change, and that's caused some headache. But these rolling gauges should really help you in hand laying track. Now you'll see these are the actual original ones that I have, and I'll use those because they're actually spaced properly. Basically all these should do is just literally snap right onto the top of the rail. Sometimes you got to push them down a little hard to get them to grasp onto the head of the rail, and then they just roll along, and all they're going to do is hold the head of the rail in the proper gauge, and then as you spike you can just put them down and you just roll them past. The same is true for if you're building switches. It's going to click right in and then allow you to build. Now when you're using the frog one, it's specifically to be used right at the frog. And I didn't build this switch. This was one that was given to me that I dug up for this video. But I noticed that the wing rail is a little close. And you know, some of this comes down to personal preference. I built these specifically based off of NMRA best practices. So you know, if there's some deviation in what you have, that's where it comes from. I'm not trying to, you know, argue over, you know, how close wing rails and stuff will be, because really I don't want to spend my time that way. I'd rather do other things. So I tried my best to follow the NMRA standards, so that should be helpful, and because everyone can find out what those are. It's not a personal thing. But you'll even find that you can use this frog gauge on regular track. You just have to, when you press this other rail in, just make sure you keep a finger on it so it's pressed tightly against the gauge there. On this gauge, the reason I have the wing rails here is if you're doing a bridge or you've got a curve that would have had a protected guardrail on it, this will help you set that as well. So there you have it. They're pretty easy. They work really well in hand laying stuff. As with any hand laying, it always comes down to finesse. And hopefully these should help you get started in the right place, so you don't have to spend as much time finessing the track and fighting with your most finicky locomotive. Well, if you have any questions or comments, please let me know. Hopefully these help guys get down the road, get some good modeling done, and hopefully they're willing to share their successes with all of you. So, anyways, have a good day. I hope everyone enjoys these. If somebody else wants some more, maybe a little ways down the line I'll make another production set, but right now I'll do them in batches because it takes a bit of setup to get them done, but I can do any scale because I can adjust for the scale, but I can only do, right now I've got tooling to do code 83, code 70, and code 55 railhead. Should work with all of them, but I know it definitely works with microengineering or ME rail. So, like I said, if you have any questions or anything, please let me know.